So this is a council meeting, so the council people will be talking. Anybody can listen in, of course. So with that, it is...
What about persons to be heard?
We're going to deal with that in just a minute. Mike, please, everybody needs to be quiet while we get started here. So first of all, we are being recorded. It is 7 o'clock, and this is the regular City Council meeting for Minnetrista, October 19th. First order of business is I'd like to ask our Allie Palfos to please say the Pledge of Allegiance for us. And if you would join, or Ellie, if you would please say that.
Yep. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Ellie. So with that, next order of business is I'm going to be doing a roll call. And if your name is called, please say present or I'm here. We'll start with council members. First of all, I'm Lisa Whalen, I'm the mayor. And next, Pam Mortensen.
I'm here.
Councilmember Mike Molitor.
Here.
Councilmember John Chumperland.
Here.
Councilmember Shannon Bruce.
Here.
And we have with us also this evening our city administrator, Mike Baroni.
I'm here.
Public Works Superintendent Gary Peters.
Present.
And Director of Administration, Ellie Palfos.
I'm here.
And City Clerk, Chris Lindquist.
I am here.
Then we also have our Finance Director, Brian Grimm.
I'm here.
Community Development Director, David Abel.
I'm here.
Chief of Police, Paul Falls.
I am here.
And then we have our consultants, our attorney, Ron Beatty with Kennedy and Graven.
Here.
And city engineers, Allison Fauski with WSB.
I am here.
And Adam Getbois with WSB.
Here.
All right, I think that gets everybody. So next is approval of our agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none then, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
So moved.
All right, so Mr. Chumperland made that motion and Ms. Mortensen seconded that. So we'll go on with all those in favor. We'll signify with aye. Councilmember Mortensen?
Aye.
Councilmember Chumperland?
Aye.
Councilmember Bruce?
Aye.
Councilmember Molitor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So motion passes 5-0. So next we move on to special presentations. We have our financial update for our third quarter. I believe that's you, Mr. Grimm.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, and I'll try to keep this brief because I know there's a lot of people here that probably aren't here to hear me speak. So this is on page 3 of the packet. Probably just highlight the items in the memo and then open it up for any questions. So this is obviously our third quarter financial update. Every quarter, we always check in on our financials. The revenue's tracking about where it should. It's at 71% in the general fund. If you back out the CARES funding, it's actually about 60%. Pretty comparable to last year where we were at 64% at the same point in 2019. On the expenditure report, most items are tracking expected as well. We're at about 71% of our year-to-date actual expenditures to overall total budget. And as of 2019, at the same time, we were at about 75%. The documents are attached on the revenues on page 4 and 5. Expenditure guideline was 6 through 12, and then there's the cash reports on page 13 and 14. I guess I'll probably just open it up for any questions from the council if there is any.
All right, thank you, Brian. Council, any questions of Mr. Grimm? Okay, I don't hear anybody. So with that, that concludes our special presentations for this evening. Thank you, Mr. Grimm. It looks like we're in pretty good shape there. Next, we'll move on to persons to be heard. I understand there's a few people that would like to speak. What I'm going to ask is if you would like to speak regarding the solar farm, would you, let's hold off on that until it is a business item. And when we get to that item, if you still wish to speak, you can speak at that time, and I'll give you your 3 minutes at that time. Ms. Olson, Jen, did you want to speak regarding another issue?
No, that issue.
All right. So we will then, what I'm going to do is refer the people that wanted to speak under persons to be heard regarding the solar farm. I'll move that to our business item, which is down the, well, after, it's our first business item. So a second business item, excuse me. So we'll move on now to consent agenda. The consent agenda includes approving, A is approve our work session meeting minutes from October 5th, 2020. B is approve our regular meeting minutes from October 5th, 2020. C is a resolution to approve our claims. D is a resolution to accept improvements and authorize final payment for the 2020 crack fill project. And E is a resolution to accept improvements and authorize final payment for the 2020 overlay project. And F is approve a Woodland Cove Trails second edition final plat. Are there any consent agenda items that need to be removed?
This is Shannon Bruce. I'd like to remove C, the claims, and also E, the final payment on the 2020 overlay project.
Okay, with that, it remains, claims and E. So that leaves us with A, B, D, and F. Anybody else want to remove a consent agenda item? Hearing none, then, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, D, and F?
This is Pam, so moved.
All right, Ms. Mortensen made that motion. Is there a second?
This is Shannon, I'll second.
Okay, and Ms. Bruce made that second. So all those in favor will signify with aye. Ms. Mortensen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bruce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Molitor?
Aye.
And Mr. Trumperlin?
Aye.
And I'm Lisa Whalen. I vote aye. Motion passes 5-0. Ms. Bruce, you requested claims be removed?
Yes, thank
You had a
you.
question?
Yes, on page 26 on the check detail register, the first item on that page is a payment to Isaac Leaf for, evidently it was a virtual candidate forum. It was the League of Women Voters candidate forum. And the city should not be paying for the League of Women Voters candidate forum recording or the posting of it to the city's YouTube channel. And because this was a political forum in which not all the candidates were represented, and it shouldn't be on the city's YouTube channel, and we shouldn't have paid anyone to put it there. It was a forum that only included the incumbent mayoral candidate, and there were 2 mayoral candidates. And it also left out another council candidate. So the National League of Women Voters organization has what they call the empty chair rule that strongly discourages conducting forums when only one candidate is present. And that rule has to do with their nonprofit, nonpartisan status with the IRS. And Minnesota evidently doesn't take the National League's advice on this, but regardless, this video is on the city's YouTube channel, and Mr. Isaac was paid to put it there. And this could be seen as, and I think it is, an example of using public funds to campaign for a political candidate, since only one mayoral candidate was present, and there are 2. And I wouldn't be bringing this up. No, let me finish. I wouldn't be bringing this up if all the candidates were represented, but they weren't. And in addition to not approving this expense, I'd like to make a motion to remove the League of Women Voters forum recording from the city's YouTube channel, because the League of Women Voters has their own channel and website to make these available to the public. And the city just simply cannot be using public funds to benefit one political candidate over another.
Well, so I'm going to make a couple comments, Ms. Bruce. First of all political candidates were invited. And
No, but they weren't present.
Hold on.
They weren't present. They weren't present, and that is why I'm making this motion.
I understand that. I'm going to make a couple comments. All political candidates were invited to the forum. All political candidates were given the same opportunity to participate. One candidate, yourself, declined for various reasons, and another candidate never responded. So 2 of the council candidates responded and participated, and I participated. I also checked with the League of Women Voters, and they said that they were following all of their rules. And their rules state that any candidate can participate, and they were not in violation of any of their rules. I know you had a question regarding that previously.
And so, I'm not questioning anything that the League of Women Voters did or didn't do. I'm saying that the city of Minnetrista should not be promoting one political candidate over another. And by putting this video of one political candidate on their YouTube channel, that is exactly what they're doing.
Okay. Council, do you want to weigh in?
I will weigh in on this. This is Pam. I think being all parties had the opportunity to participate and they decided to decline, I think that this is a debate and our residents deserve to hear the opinions and the positions of all the candidates. So being they declined, that was their choice.
Okay. Mr. Molitor or Mr. Chamberlain, you want to weigh in?
This is John T. I would agree with Ms. Mortensen. They were invited for whatever reason, whether they were ill or out of the area, whatever. They had the choice of being there or not. This is not, from my perspective, this has nothing to do with a political statement. It's simply recording the factual item that took place in the city for the city, and as such, we recorded and put it out. I would assume, and maybe assume isn't a correct word, but maybe this can be answered by staff, that this is standard, that it's done every year, whether everybody has attended or not. So this is not a departure from past processes. Am I correct in that assumption?
Mr. Baroni, would you be the one?
Sure. Mayor and Council, the city has worked with the League of Women Voters chapter, the local area, for probably the last 2 or 3 election cycles. And other than this year being a virtual meeting, we have done the same exact format every year and put up the recording of the meeting on our channel. So residents that weren't able to listen in this year or watch or listen in or watch it in previous years would be able to hear what the candidate or candidates had to say about the topics that they were asked about. So it was, obviously a choice by some members that were included in the original invite list to not participate. That was obviously their choice, but and that has happened in the past where people have not participated. But that's what we've done in previous years is we have posted that video, an audio and video, to our YouTube channel.
And my understanding of the empty chair rule, which the National League of Women Voters has as a rule, that they strongly discourage debates or forums when, and it's okay if one candidate, when there's like 3 or 4 candidates for city council, somebody doesn't show up, that's fine. But when there are 2 candidates for 1 seat and only one is there and there's an empty chair and the other candidate is not represented, that's what the empty chair rule is about. And you can verify that with the National League of Women Voters. And I'd like Mr. Beatty to weigh in on this and to ask him, is it okay for a city to essentially promote one candidate, one political candidate over another by posting the video of a forum that one candidate isn't in on the city's website or on the city's YouTube
Mr.
channel.
Beatty? Mr. Beatty, you have an opinion, a legal opinion on this?
Madam Mayor, I don't. This is completely new to me, but I agree with Mr. Barone. This is historically what we have done.
All right, thank you. Mr. Molitor, you haven't weighed in yet?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Brian, do you happen to know what was the cost? So, in the claims, it says city council meetings and virtual candidate forum. Do you happen to know how much the cost to post that virtual candidate forum? Do you know what the cost was for that?
I can try to get it here. I think it was about a half and half. Like half of it was for the council meeting and half was for the virtual forum of the 520. I don't have it right in front of me at this moment. But
Because he didn't really, did he record it? I guess that's my question. Did Leaf record this, or was it recorded by the League of Women Voters?
Mayor, this is Allie. I can pop in here.
Okay.
I'm assuming the cost for the forum was for all of the putting the poster up front, putting the council's members' names at the bottom. So just formatting of it, because it was, an hour and a half long. He has to add all of the council members' names on each frame, and so I think that was the cost. Of formatting the video and posting it to YouTube. We recorded it ourselves on GoToMeeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right.
and I did just verify it was 260 was the billing for that portion per his invoice. So basically half of the bill.
260. Okay. Well, so here's kind of a thought. Since Mr. Isaac he was just doing what he was told to do, and since this is how it's been done in the past, I don't know that it would be fair to say to him, well, you're not going to get paid. Is there any way we can ask the League of Women Voters to pay for that portion of it? Mr.
Mayor,
Grimm,
this
or
is Allie. I think
Allie?
we could definitely ask them.
Okay.
But
So
Mayor and Council, you may not get the answer you want. So generally, when you go to a community like us, and like I said, previous renditions of the forums were held live and also recorded. Your city is the one responsible for recording that actual video. The league doesn't really hire people and cameras, et cetera, to come in and record it. We did that. And we did that, again, for the benefit of people that live in this city that weren't able to this year listen in, but in previous years come to it or listen to it, so they get a chance to hear what the candidates said about the questions that were asked. That's why. So we're hiring him to make that available for our residents. That's why it's no different than a council meeting. If we want our residents to be able to hear what happened at the gathering. So.
And I think the city ought to have a policy that these forums are fine to videotape and put up on the YouTube channel if all the candidates are present. But if they're not, and especially in a mayoral race, if one of the candidates isn't present, it should not be put up on the city's YouTube channel, because that is promoting a candidate promoting one candidate over another.
Well, I don't think that was the city's intent. And
well, of course you would say that.
If the
tables were turned, you would do the exact same thing.
No, I wouldn't. One, every single candidate, including yourself, had every opportunity to participate.
And that's irrelevant.
It wasn't a matter. Let me finish. It wasn't a matter of you having something else to do or being ill or anything like that. You chose not to participate for various reasons of your own.
And
That's
part of the
all I'm
rule,
saying.
part of the League of Women
Yeah,
Voters rule is to state the candidate's reason for not participating, and they did not.
Okay, I know
And
you're
that
angry
is part
about
of
this.
that's part of the Minnesota's League of Women Voters rule, is if a candidate decides not to participate, they are obligated in the Minnesota rules to state why the candidate is not participating, and they didn't.
Okay. I don't think we need to debate their rules here tonight. The question here tonight for us is whether or not we're going to authorize the payment to Leaf Isaac in the amount of $520. So I guess I'll leave that to the council. Why don't we do this? Let's take that off of the claims for right now, approve the remainder of the claims, and then we'll take a vote on the authorization for Leaf Isaac as a separate vote. So do I have a motion to approve the remainder of the claims other than the one to Leaf Isaac in the amount of $520?
Well, Mayor,
Mayor
you've
Whalen,
already,
can I?
you've already
I'm
approved
sorry.
A, B, D, and F. So the only other
Hold
item,
on.
Mayor, you've already approved and got a motion second and approved A, B, D, and F.
Yes, they've already done it.
We went to C, which is the item that Ms. Bruce pulled, and also we have item E. So if you want to move on to E and then come back to this, you certainly can, but I don't think it's going to, change anything here in a couple of minutes. So we've
No,
already
it's not.
approved the other.
I just thought
we've
if
already
we
approved
did
the other
accept
claims.
I understand. We haven't approved any of the claims.
Yes, we
And
have.
so all I'm,
Yes,
the
you
other
did.
claims. Got it. Are you talking about this item or just the claims?
claims. We haven't approved the claims.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Oops, oops.
Okay.
Madam
Okay.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, City Administrator Barone is correct. The claims have not been approved yet because, again,
Correct.
like you said, we only approved A, B, D, and F. So we're
Correct.
Councilmember Bruce pulled off C. So I think what City Administrator Barone is saying is that you vote on the claims with that being there, and everybody votes on it, yes or no. And then if it fails, then I think you go back and discuss it then. And
Right. Okay. I was just right. Okay. All right. So the claims
Mayor Whalen, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Before we end this conversation, this is Pam. I did get a response from League of Women Voters that they were responding back to some of the allegations that Ms. Bruce is implying here, and I'd like to read them if I can.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, it says the guidelines specify that if an invited candidate is unable or decides not to appear at a scheduled event, the event will still be held. Going to the accusation that the League of Women Voters breaks its own rule in Minnetrista, candidate Shannon Bruce quotes the voter education toolkit of the League of Women Voters Greater Cleveland published in 2015. These rules do not pertain to the League of Women Voters in Minnesota. Every league throughout the nation determines their own rules on how they conduct their forums based on their local capacity in accordance with the state and the local laws. Guidance may be set by the state league to ensure compliance with nonpartisan or state law, but otherwise, local leagues vary in their specific procedures. We do not follow the rules of the leagues in Ohio. Furthermore, the rules cited in that particular handbook from the League of Women Voters, Greater Cleveland, is outdated. So I just wanted to read that. That was a response back to what Ms. Bruce was claiming and accusing them of.
And I would like to respond to Ms. Mortenson's response that
okay, quickly, and then we're going to move on.
The rule that I was quoting was from the National League of Women Voters manual, not Cleveland. And we're not debating the league's rules here. We are talking about what's right for the city of Minnetrista, to whether it's right for Minnetrista to be advocating for one candidate over another. That's what we're talking about here. We're not debating the league's rules.
Well, you
Actually,
were
what we're
opposed.
actually what
And
we
in your
are debating
accusation.
is, hold on just a second here. Actually, what we are debating is whether or not the $520 should be paid to Leif Isaac. That's really what we're debating. It's in the claims, and that's the question in front of the council. Do we pay Leif Isaac for his work on the city council meetings and the virtual candidate forum, or do we not pay him? So,
and there was another motion. I had also made another motion to take the video off the city's YouTube channel.
Okay, so let's do one thing at a time. First, we're going to address the claims, and then if you want to make a motion to remove it from the video from the YouTube channel, you can do that right after we deal with the claims. So, is there a motion to approve the claims?
So moved.
John T. So moved.
John Chumperland made a motion to approve the claims. Is there a second?
I'll second that. This is Pam.
Okay, and Ms. Mortensen seconded that. I'm assuming as presented, Mr. Chumperland, is that correct?
Correct. He did the time.
Okay. All right. So with that, I'll call I'll do the roll call. Ms. Bruce, how do you vote?
No.
And Mr. Chumperland, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Molitor, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Ms. Mortensen, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I'm Lisa Whalen. I'm going to abstain. So with that, motion passes. 1 nay and 3 ayes and 1 abstention. So next, Ms. Bruce, you wanted to make a motion to remove it from the city's YouTube channel?
Yes.
All right. Can you make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion to remove the League of Women Voters candidate forum from the city's YouTube channel.
Okay. Is there a second for that? All right. For lack of a second, I will second that then. So is there any further discussion? Hearing none then, Ms. Bruce, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Chumperland, how do you vote?
No.
And Ms. Mortensen, how do you vote?
No.
And Mr. Molitor, how do you vote?
Nay.
And I'm again going to abstain, so motion fails. 3 nays, 1 abstention, and 1 aye. So we'll move on to our next consent agenda item, which can accept improvements and authorize final payment for the 2020 overlay project. Is that correct, Ms. Bruce?
Yes, and I just pulled this because my street is on this overlay project, and so I'll just be abstaining, and I just wanted to explain the reason why I was abstaining on that.
All right, thank you. So with that, is there a motion to approve the final payment for the 2020 overlay project?
So moved. This is Pam.
All right, Ms. Mortensen made that motion. Is there a second?
John, I'll second.
All right, Mr. Chumperland made that second. So all those in favor will signify with aye. Ms. Mortensen?
Aye.
Mr. Chumperland?
Aye.
Mr. Molitor?
Aye.
And I, Lisa Whalen, I vote aye. And Shannon Bruce, you already indicated that you will be abstaining. Is that correct?
Yes, abstain.
So that makes it 1 abstention and 4 ayes. Motion passes. So we'll move, that concludes our consent agenda items. So we will move on now to our business items. I believe we have no public hearings this evening. So first item, I think, is approve a special meeting for Friday, November 13th to canvass the election results. Is that Ms. Paulfus who's taking this one?
I can take that one, Madam Mayor. This is Chris Lindquist, the city clerk.
Thank you.
I received a memo from Hennepin County, and due to the COVID conditions and some of the legislation changes with the counting of the ballots, with the extension of the counting of the ballots for 7 days. They stated that they will not have any results ready until November 13th at noon. So that's the deadline that they said that they'd be able to get things out to people by noon. They're going to be canvassing at 6 p.m. Hennepin County is. We are requesting, staff is requesting to do it at a special meeting at 1 o'clock on Friday, November 13th.
Okay. All right.
Normally we do it with our meeting, that one meeting in November, but it's just not going to be possible this year.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lindquist. Council, any questions? So then I have to ask.
John.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
Ms. Lindquist, could you just tell me the process that takes place when this is done?
You mean for canvassing or for how they're going to be counting? I guess I didn't fully quite understand your question.
Oh, when we talk about having a special meeting and doing the canvassing for the election results, what's involved in that?
Oh, okay. It usually takes about 5 minutes. So what happens is I will swear you all in. You all have to take an oath as being the canvass board. You'll kind of drop your role of council member and you become the canvassing board for the city of Minnetrista. We go through the results and then everybody, and I'm sure I'm going to have to probably drive around to everybody's house because you all need to sign it. So I haven't quite figured that out yet or not. But you won't have information prior to the meeting. Like I said, they won't be getting me the information till noon. So as soon as I get it, I will be putting it out for the council. Unfortunately, that's the best that we can do. But by then we should have a pretty good idea. I mean, we should have a pretty good idea what the canvassing is going to be. And all we do is we only canvass for the local municipality race. We don't canvass for anything else. We don't canvass for any Hennepin County items. We don't canvass for any of the school board items. We just
just the city ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Did that help?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have questions on Ms. Lindquist? And then the next question, of course, is everybody available on November 13th at 1 o'clock? It shouldn't be a very long meeting. I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but maybe 15, 20 minutes at the most?
Oh, I don't even think it'll take that long.
Okay. So is everybody available? Mike, are you available? Mike Molitor, are you available?
Yes, I should be able to do that.
All right. And Pam and John and Shannon, all three of you, are you available?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Is it going to be a Zoom meeting or do you think we'll go in, plan on Zoom?
We're planning on it being a virtual.
Okay. I am available, yeah.
Okay. All right. So like Ms. Lindquist was saying, we just have to figure out how to get the signatures, and that may be driving around to each of our places wherever we're at, or figuring that out. So, all right. With that, then we will have a special meeting on Friday, November 13th at 1 o'clock. It will be a virtual meeting, and it will be to canvass the election results for the city of Minnetrista. So, thank you. Yes.
Could we do a motion in a second, please?
I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So is there a motion to approve that meeting?
This is Shannon. I'll make a motion.
Okay. Ms. Bruce made that motion, and Ms. Mortensen seconded that. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's good. Yep.
Okay. All right. So all those in favor will signify with aye. Ms. Bruce?
Aye.
Ms. Mortensen,
Aye.
Mr. Molitor,
Aye.
Mr. Chumperland,
Aye.
and I vote aye, Lisa Whalen. Motion passes 5-0. So our next business item is what everybody's been waiting for, and this is the site plan review for the ground-mounted solar energy system, PID number 20-117-24-22-002. What we're going to, the way I'm going to handle this is going to have David give us a very brief, quick overview of the application. I have a few comments I'm going to make, and then I'll open it up for persons to be heard if you still need or feel you need to make comments. Okay, somebody needs to mute their mic. Thank you. And then the council will take it back for an action. So with that, David, I'll hand it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. There has been an application made regarding ground-mounted solar energy systems at the property located in the northeast corner of the intersection of County Road 92 and West Highland Road. The application before you is a site plan review. A site plan review is used for all new uses or major changes to existing uses in any zoning district that do not require any other type of land use application. City Ordinance number 431 was adopted back in July of 2015. That ordinance does allow ground-mounted solar energy systems as a permitted use within the agricultural preserve zoning district, which is what the property in question is zoned currently. All solar systems are subject to certain performance standards. As you see in the staff report in your packet, much of it is focused on the application of those standards with this request. Standards regarding setbacks and height are more straightforward and concrete and easy to measure. Those numbers are laid out and easy to apply to this application. There are standards for screening that are much more subjective and open for interpretation. The Planning Commission did review this proposed site plan at their September meeting, and after a lengthy discussion, much of which did focus around screening, the Planning Commission ultimately made two separate motions. One of the motions was specific to the site plan, and the second motion they made was seeking clarification from the City Council and City Attorney of the interpretation of Ordinance number 431 regarding ground-mounted solar systems. We did include a draft copy of those Planning Commission meeting minutes in your packet so you could get an understanding of what those two motions are and flavor for what the discussion and concerns that the Planning Commission had discussed were about. So with that, staff is seeking direction from the City Council on what to bring back regarding this item at your next regular City Council meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. So like I said before, I really want to make this as efficient as possible. We did receive many emails, petitions, and comments from residents. And first of all, I want to thank you for letting us know how you feel and what your thoughts are on this. I know I've read them all. I know I've spoken with some of you, and I assure you that the council, the rest of the council, has read them as well. So I want to just first start out by saying that I'm opposed to this application. I do not feel that this is the right application for this site and or for this neighborhood. But first, I wanted to give everybody a little bit of background of why we added ground-mounted solar panels to the ordinance. I think it's fair to say that most of us are in favor of renewable or carbon-free energy, so it's not about the solar energy that anyone is opposing. That's not what we're opposing. Several years ago, residents were asking the city if they could install solar gardens on their property. And at the time, we only allowed for roof-mounted panels. And so rather than having them go through a costly and time-consuming variance process, the council decided to change the ordinance allowing for solar gardens. So one of our concerns was the aesthetics. As we went through this process, I clearly recall that we were very concerned about the aesthetics, and so we tried to make sure that these types of projects would be well screened. We had other concerns as well and tried to incorporate them into the ordinance. There's a couple of issues with this application. If you look at page 56 in our packet, it talks about the purpose and location. And under purpose, it states, the intent of this section is to allow reasonable construction of solar energy systems, etc. I don't believe this meets that criteria. And I'll talk a little bit about that in just a little bit. But also on page 56, the ordinance refers to location, and it clearly spells out a front yard, side yard, and backyard. And I spoke with the chair of the Planning Commission, and who was on the Planning Commission at the time, and her recollection was that the ordinance was geared towards residents and properties that had a house on them. And the intent was for residents that wanted to install solar panels on a portion of their property so that they would have the ability to do this, however, in their backyard. And we even had one applicant a few years back come forward and actually do exactly that. And he was required to, please mute your microphones if you could, please. I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And he did that, and we required him to fully screen his application. However, it probably wasn't spelled out real clear in the ordinance as to where these applications or solar gardens can be installed. But having said that, there are two issues that don't meet the ordinance standards, and one is lot coverage, and the other one is the screening. In the Ag Preserve District, if you look and it says the total allowable coverage is 25%. Now the intent here, or my understanding, is the total land area that the panels are covering, not each individual panel. I believe staff interpreted the ordinance incorrectly. For instance, a 40-acre parcel could have a 10-acre solar garden on it. In this application, the panels cover the entire buildable parcel. This is one reason I am recommending to the City Council denial. In addition to exceeding the allowable coverage, the screening is not adequate and also does not meet the standards. It will not screen the surrounding properties or their views or views from the road. This particular property is inherently impossible to screen, not only because of its topography, but also because of the size of the solar garden. If a parcel cannot meet the standards under the ordinance, then it should be considered not suitable for this type of application. And that's the other reason I am recommending denial. For these reasons, I would like to ask the City Council to deny this application and ask staff to bring back a resolution with these findings. At the same token, I would also like to ask the Council to consider imposing a moratorium and bring back an ordinance imposing a moratorium for solar gardens at this time. That would give the city an opportunity to take a step back and revisit this ordinance. With that, I'm going to open it up for comments from the public, and I'm going to ask that you please be very brief. I will give you 3 minutes at the most. Mr. Baroni, you said that you had one person say that they wanted to make a comment, and you also had a email from another person that they wanted you to read into the minutes. If you could do that very quickly right now, I would appreciate that.
Mayor and Council, if you're not on a computer, you and just on your phone, you will see that we probably have, excuse me, I would say around 20 people that are participating in this meeting. So I certainly can honor your request, Mayor, and read the one email that I did receive, and then honor the one request from the people that would like to speak. So I think what I'll do is, so I've been muting people for a number of reasons. So I'm going to find the first person that was basically here tonight from the public. So trying to unmute them, I apologize. Come on.
While Mr. Baroni is trying to unmute people, I will say for the record, you will have to state your name and address for the record, and please speak clearly because we do need to get that for the record. So, Mr. Baroni?
I'm trying here.
You're trying, okay.
Absolutely. So, oh man, this is really ridiculous.
Can people put their hands up? Is that an option?
I don't have that option here.
This is Shannon Bruce. I'll fill the dead air here with a question.
Sure.
So what does having a moratorium on solar gardens mean when we have an ordinance that says that they're permitted?
I'll let Mr. Beatty weigh in on that. Mr. Beatty?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Council, if the council decides to ask staff to prepare an ordinance declaring a moratorium, it would be just that. We would bring back a draft ordinance for your next meeting, which would implement the statutory provision allowing what are called interim ordinances. And the idea is if you discover or
Okay, you have to, Ron, you were muted there for a little bit. Mr. Baroni?
I'm trying to figure this
All right.
audio out, Mayor.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now we can hear you, Ron. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know how far I got.
You just said something to redo. You're talking about bringing back to redo it.
Yeah, in other words, what an interim ordinance allows you to do is to reconsider an official control. And it happens when you come to the conclusion that there's some issue with regard to your ordinances and there's some urgency with regard to do that. So if the council authorized that and we brought back an interim ordinance, and if it were adopted at the next meeting, it would initiate a study of whatever it is that you ask for, solar energy systems in general, or on certain properties or within certain zoning districts, however you want to articulate that. And while the interim ordinance is in place, statutory maximum is a year, then no applications for that could be processed.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Ms. Bruce?
It does. It raises another one. Why wouldn't we just rescind the ordinance and establish it again in the future write a new ordinance that was better thought out, if you will?
Madam Mayor, council member, you could certainly do that, but of course, to rescind, this is a zoning ordinance. To rescind that, you'd have to go through the process for considering a zoning ordinance, which requires planning commission consideration and council action, which is the normal process and can happen, but would take some time. A quicker route would be an interim ordinance, which does not require planning commission review. It goes directly to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Baroni, have you been able to figure it out?
Mayor, I'm giving it my best shot here. I'm going to ask, I don't know who that is. I'm going to ask Ed and Mary Ryan if you're there to go ahead and speak.
Okay.
We are. Can you hear us?
I can.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Very good.
Mr.
Thank
Baroni?
you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
All right. Thank you. Yes, Mayor, Council, we appreciate the opportunity to share our concerns.
You have
regarding
to
this.
state your, I'm sorry, you have to
Yes,
state your
Ed,
address
Ed
too.
and Mary
Okay.
Ryan, 2300 County Road 92, Minnetrista.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we wanted to share our concerns regarding this proposed solar farm in our neighborhood next door. And I think, as summarized in our letter that has been included in your information, we became aware of this project 2 weeks ago and were quite surprised to learn that a solar farm of this size and magnitude would be built with no public notice or hearings. The 2015 ordinance that this project relies upon does not seem to address the commercial production and sale of electricity, which this solar farm proposes. Mary and I can't imagine that the council, in passing this ordinance, had in mind this type of approach to renewable energy. Does the city intend in its long-term plans to encourage the development of solar farms ringing Whaletail Lake? Does the design of the ordinance permit our property, nearly 3 times as large, to be covered with solar panels? Does the ordinance promote and permit solar farms built all along the corridor of County Road 92 as long as it's zoned ag preserve? These questions and many others deserve to be addressed prior to any development going forward. We encourage the City Council to take a step back, as you suggest, Mayor, and reassess and revise this ordinance to separate residential and agricultural use from utility scale commercial production use. And most importantly, to address where the city would be best served for the commercial industrial project that this is proposed. So I want to thank you for the time to hear us, and we look forward to your response.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. I think, as I stated earlier, I think I fully agree. I hope that the rest of the council does as well. And I think your points are well made. So thank you very much. Ms. Olson, Ms. Olson wanted to speak. Jen, if you're available, I'll give you a couple minutes. Mr. Brony, can you unmute Ms. Olson?
Mayor, she is unmuted.
Okay, Ms. Olson. Okay. Jen Olson, are you there? Ms. Olson?
I think she's trying to unmute me, but it's not working.
Okay, it's not working.
So,
okay.
You know, I'll just be perfectly honest with you. This is the most people we ever had on here. We have a capacity to be able to have 250 people participate, and we have 29, which includes council and staff. But I'm clicking on people's microphones, trying to unmute them, and I'm not able to do it.
Huh.
So I have no idea.
Okay.
So
all right.
I think there's one.
Yeah.
I have one letter that came from Michael and Shelley Greer, who live at 2835 Highland Road. And I won't read all of it because it was very similar to what Mr. Ryan just spoke about. But I will just summarize kind of the key points in that letter, which is what he asked me to do. So this is an open letter to the council. They're not opposed to solar panels for personal residents. And then he described how he drove through Shakopee and he saw a commercial solar field surrounded by many commercial businesses on the northeast and west side of the this particular solar panel. He says this is the type of area that a commercial solar field is appropriately to be located in. It doesn't negatively impact single-family homes or farmers. And then he says, from what we understand, the property owner is not a resident of the community, would not be living on the property, would be leasing out the land to an energy company. Therefore, this is definitely a commercial endeavor and application and not in keeping with the surroundings. There are no commercial buildings or businesses in the area, so they request that they deny the application, the council denies the application outright, and they ask the council to pass a 1-year moratorium so a full study can be done, and if there needs to be amendments to the ordinance, that can be put in place. So essentially, that's his thoughts. Again, very similar to what we just heard.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. And you'll pass that on to Ms. Lindquist so that she has that information as well.
Absolutely.
Quite honestly, thank you for reading that. All of the emails and that we received basically say the same thing. They are opposed to it. Unless I'm missing something, I don't think there was one single email that said that they're in favor of it. And again, I want to reiterate, we're not opposed to solar panels or to solar power. That's not it at all. But I think what we need to focus on here is how this applies to our ordinance and how it applies to the law. And what I was saying earlier, there are two issues that I see that are reason enough to deny this application. And so I'm going to ask take this back to the council again, knowing that there's a lot of opposition out here, and knowing what I've said, are you in favor of passing a resolution denying this application based on the findings that I have stated? I'll hand it, first I'll give it to Mike.
Will you allow the developer?
Mayor, I think my phone is connected in. Could I please have my 3 minutes?
Okay, sure. We were waiting for you, Ms. Olson, and didn't hear you. So
something happened.
I'm going to give you about 3 minutes.
Totally. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to give you about 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. And I concur with much of what's been said, but I have another angle here. When I was mayor of Minnetrista in 1981, the Met Council cited landfills in Minnetrista, 3 sites. They were all out in that ag preserve area where we have the top soils for agricultural production. And I thought it was just an abomination that they would consider 2 solid waste landfills and 1 for sewage sludge ash. And so I went before the Met Council and I framed my arguments with the criteria that they used to select them. And 1 by 1 showed that they did not meet their own criteria, and they removed all 3. One of the Bowl Farm was one of those, and beyond that. So this area is a part of that. Fast forward to 2021, or no, 2011.
We're still in 20.
I was,
yeah.
2011, in my last term in the Senate, and I was approached by a group of soil scientists that came to ask me to tell me about the request that I introduce a bill to make the Lester soil the official state soil. They said it's the 100th anniversary of the University School of Soil Science. It's the 40th anniversary of their organization. And the Smithsonian
you have
was
1 more
coming
minute left, Ms.
Yes,
Olson.
I come
we
to
need
Minnesota.
To get to the point here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, just don't you use it. They had their Dig It exhibit at the Bell Museum, and the column for Minnesota was the Lester soil. It is a unique soil, about 650,000 acres through the center of Minnesota, where the prairie meets the big woods, and it's a unique, and it's organic matter, and it's a wonderful soil for agriculture. And
it's out there in the west, in this area.
We have it in the west area, and if you haven't seen it, there's an education exhibit at the Gale Woods Farm that shows the Lester soils and what they are. And I think it's an abomination for this to have an ordinance that would allow a farm like this, because we don't know that those solar panels don't last forever. They have chemicals, they have metals in them. Are they leaching into the soil? Would they ruin it for all time? We are blessed in Minnetrista to have
Right.
This quality of agriculture soils, that if we're an important part of our economy and it's a part of what makes, and it fulfills, frankly, I think your recommendation, I would make the same thing because it also would make you honor your own mission statement, our own mission statement.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, another good view on it as well. So with that, I'm going to take it
Madam
back
Mayor,
to the
could
council
developer
now.
have an opportunity to speak, please? I'm the
I will give you 3 minutes. So go ahead.
Thank you. I know this isn't a popular project. I'd like you all to know that, I'm a real person. I grew up in the area. I grew up in Orono. Orono looks very different today than it did back then. After graduating from law school, I've done a lot of developments. I've developed pipelines. I've developed oil and gas drill sites. And solar is by far the least invasive of these type of necessary developments. And in all of these developments, the neighbors are important. The neighbors are important here, and I do want to be a good neighbor. Unfortunately, I can't change what a solar panel looks like, but I can do my best to engage in beautification and make it look as good as possible. I started this site selection process with the ordinance, and I worked backwards to identify the one parcel that is in this Ag Preserve District and is not enrolled in the Ag Preserve program. You can't be enrolled in the Ag Preserve program to do this. This is the only site that it is allowed to be on. And that's why I'm agreeing to buy it. Underneath the panel will be planted with an indigenous pollinator-friendly seed mix that will improve the permeability of the soil. It'll decrease the velocity of water runoff. It won't use pesticides, and it will improve the water quality of Whale Tail Lake. And solar panels have proven that they don't leak anything into the soil. That's all mumbo jumbo. That's not true. I understand some people don't like the looks, and I'm going to be asking the city council to approve this nevertheless, because it does satisfy the ordinance and it is a permitted use. Nevertheless, if it is approved, I do care about what the neighbors think, and I will make a sincere effort to beautify it as much as possible. With that said, I'd ask that the city attorney read in the letter that they wrote. This use clearly is a permitted use, and it clearly was anticipated by the ordinance as drafted. What the lot coverage, what it says, it actually describes lot coverage for solar panels. The total square footage of ground-mounted solar panel systems when oriented at minimum tilt is how it's measured, and that's how this was measured. So out the window with that one. The next issue is screening. And what the ordinance says is that ground-mounted solar energy systems must be screened from view from exit to the extent possible without reducing its efficiency. And that's what we've done here. We've done everything we can to beautify this. And I'm asking the city council to uphold their duty to apply the law as it was written. I have worked tirelessly to find a site where this is allowed. It is an excellent site for a solar development. I do believe that solar is important. I do believe that it will improve the water quality. And after a while, people drive by these things and they don't even notice them. At first, it's a big deal. The first one's always hard, but after a while, people don't really care. And I hope you understand that it is important to me to make it a, I want you to like it.
Right. Thank you. All right. I appreciate what you have to say, and we're going to be debating this now. So thank you very much for your input. Moving on then, or taking this back to the council. Council, do you have questions of staff? Do you have comments you'd like to make? I'll start with Shannon. Go ahead.
Thank you. I agree with denying the application or the proposal based on all the things that you identified, but I would add to the list that one of the reasons to deny it is because of Minnetrista's goals to protect and preserve Minnetrista's ag preserve land for farming. I think that is stated in our comp plan. I think it's stated in our mission statement, and I think it should be stated as one of the reasons for denial of this proposal.
Okay, all right. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I will weigh in. This is Pam. I agree with Mayor Lisa's recommendation to deny the application. I think what Mayor Whalen stated was right on. And I did go back and view that meeting on back in July of 2015, and what she had stated was exactly accurate. So I do agree we should look at this ordinance again and revisit it and come up with a better solution.
Okay, Mr. Molitor?
The only thing I'd like to add is that, actually a couple things. I believe the solar gardens are supposed to be 1 megawatt per parcel for the Excel program, and we are actually looking at 3 megawatts here on one parcel. I think that's another inhibiting factor here, unless there's a subdivision request here, which there isn't. Also, in specific to the site plan review, there looks like there's been some flooding in the area based on some pictures that were provided by one of the residents. And I don't believe there's anything that was in that panel or in the packet that would address that on this specific area as well. So that's an item that's specific to this application, not the overall issue.
Oh, okay, thank you. And Mr. Chamberlain?
Mine are probably more generic, and it's based on my interpretation of the ordinance as it was written and what the Ag Preserve District's criteria are. Even though ground-mounted were added, solar systems were added as a permitted use in the Ag Preserve District, I have an issue with, within the ordinance, the systems are listed under accessory structures. This isn't an accessory structure. This would be the primary, in that there aren't any other buildings on this, at this address. And then secondly, as you alluded to earlier, it talks about it being used as in side or backyards, which to me points, at least in my interpretation, points to the logic that it was intended for individual residents, homeowners who wanted to put it in their backyard and put a few panels in to help supplement and use the electricity for their own personal use, their homeowners' use, not as a commercial project. And back again just to the Ag Preserve District, the facts of what we as residents want the Ag Preserve District to be. There was 6 items listed. I won't read them all, but one of them is to protect such areas from encroachment by non-agricultural uses, structures, or activities. Another one is to protect and maintain the open space for the creation of an attractive living environment. And another one is to protect, preserve, and maintain the unique rural lifestyle, which, I mean, there were soybeans on it this year, and there's been crops on it for a number of years, and it's a farmland. We get back to, obviously, the aesthetics of being able to surround it with fences and put up trees and bushes. The topographical layout of that land is not ever going to make it be out of sight. It's just not going to work to be aesthetically pleasing. So again, those I know are my own opinions, but I don't believe the original ordinance was built for commercial enterprise.
Okay, thank you. So what I have here, if you'll bear with me, one, it doesn't meet the standards for screening. It exceeds, in my opinion, the overall 25% of cover. It does not, Mike, Mr. Molitor, you were saying something about the megawatts per parcel. It exceeds the maximum. Can you give me a little more specific wording on that?
it's my understanding, and I don't have the exact wording in front of me, that each solar garden as defined, and I believe this is state statute, but I can't be quoted on that, it is defined as 1 megawatt per parcel. This proposal is 3 megawatts, and it's still one parcel. If you note on the diagrams on the application, it's broken up as 3 as presented, and that's fine. You can slice it up into 30 if you want, or 3,000, but it's still one parcel of land, and it's still 3 megawatts.
Okay.
So I think it was intended to be, and by intention, I don't mean city ordinance. I mean the statute that drives this solar generation at the state level was intended to be a solar farm of 1 megawatt per parcel. And that's
all right. Thank you.
in this proposition.
Okay. So we have, besides the 2 that I had listed, we also say that it encroaches into the non-ag, or we conflicts with the comp plan by encroaching on the use for ag, and then it doesn't preserve our ag land, and it exceeds the 1 megawatt per parcel requirement by the state. We're also concerned about the seasonal flooding, and we also mentioned that this is not an accessory structure, rather it's a primary structure. Did I get all of that? Anything else? If not, then with that, I would entertain a motion to ask staff to bring back a resolution with those findings to deny the application.
This is John T. So moved.
Okay, Mr. Chamberlain made that motion. Is there a second?
This is Pam. I'll second that.
All right, a second has been made. Is there any further questions or discussion by the council? All right, hearing none then, I'll call the vote. Ms. Bruce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Chamberlain?
Aye.
Ms. Mortensen?
Aye.
Mr. Molitor?
Aye.
And I'm Lisa Whalen. I vote aye. So motion passes 5-0. And then I'm going to go on and ask the council to make a motion to direct staff to bring back an ordinance imposing a 1-year moratorium for solar gardens in the ag district, unless you want to make it citywide. I guess we could have a little discussion about that. As Mr. Beatty pointed out, you can do a number of things. You can be real specific. You can say we want to do a moratorium on the ag district or agricultural preserve district, or you want to do it citywide. It's up to the council. In the other districts, they do have to come in for a conditional use permit, as you know. But in the ag preserve district, they do not. And that's why a lot of people didn't get wind of this prior to this meeting, prior to the Planning Commission meeting, I should say. But with that, what is your wish, council? Entire city or just the ag preserve district? I'll ask John, you're first. Oh. Okay, Shannon, go ahead.
I think just the ag preserve district, because of the conditional use permit required citywide. I don't have a problem with the rest of the city. It's just ag preserve.
Okay, Mr. Chamberlain?
I would agree with Ms. Bruce. This is the one district that it's a permitted use. The others have to jump through hoops, and as such would be limited, I think, again, by the intent of what a solar garden is. So just this,
okay,
just the ag preserve.
Right, and I agree too, and that's why I mentioned it. Mr. Molitor, are you okay with the ag preserve district?
Yes.
All right, and Ms. Mortensen?
I agree.
All right, so I need a motion that we impose a 1-year moratorium on solar gardens for 1 year, and we direct staff to bring back the resolution. It's not a resolution, it's actually an ordinance imposing a 1-year moratorium for solar gardens. Now, having said that, I just want to make it clear, that's not to say that we have to put a moratorium on it for a full year, but what it does is it gives the city a full year in which to make the changes. If we make the changes sooner, then that ordinance can be revoked. And I'll just ask Ron quickly to weigh in on that. Is that correct, Ron?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that's correct. The statutory maximum is a year. You can establish as much time as you want. Typically, whatever time is established, if the study is concluded and an ordinance is adopted that changes the existing ordinance, if you do that more rapidly than that, then typically the moratorium is taken off at that point. So it's not the maximum is a year, but as a practical matter, it's often less than that.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to make sure that we all understood that. So who would like to make the motion? Otherwise, I will. All right, I'll make a motion that we direct staff to bring back an ordinance imposing a one-year moratorium for solar gardens in the Ag Preserve District. So a motion has been made by myself, Lisa Whalen. Is there a second to that motion?
This is Shannon. I'll second.
Okay, and Ms. Bruce seconded that. So all those in favor will signify with aye. I'll start out. I'm Lisa Whalen. I say aye. Ms. Bruce, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Trumperlin?
Aye.
And Mr. Molitor?
Aye.
And Ms. Mortensen?
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. So that concludes our site plan review for the ground-mounted solar energy system. Staff, I believe you have your work cut out for you and you have your direction. So we'll move on to approve the purchase of public safety vehicles. Mr. Fall, who is Paul? Is that you, Chief Falls?
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, thank you. That is me. In your packet, I believe it's on page 136, you'll see a staff report requesting to purchase 2 new police vehicles out of the 2020 police CIP budget, which was approved by the council in the amount of $100,000. This purchase would be for 2 2021 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles in the estimated amount of $89,400. That includes both the vehicles, the equipment, and the setup. It would be for 1 fully marked patrol vehicle, which, as you know, has all kinds of equipment, graphics on the outside, lights, cages, computers, video cameras, etc. The second vehicle would be what we refer to as an administrative vehicle, so it has lights and siren and things, but very limited equipment beyond that. It would be replacing two vehicles with high miles. The first one is a 2016 police Ford Interceptor utility with over 120,000 miles on it. It's certainly showing its age. It's old. It's tired. The second vehicle is actually a 2013 police Interceptor sedan. It's the last one of the sedans. This was a marked police vehicle for years, and then we stripped it down and gave it to our detective as an unmarked vehicle. That vehicle has just over 96,000 miles on it. Obviously, if we order those, if this is approved, we would order these vehicles, but it does take 12 to 14 weeks to receive them, and then another several weeks to get the vehicles set up and into service. So the miles obviously would be considerably higher at that time. So with that, I guess I'm looking for a motion to authorize us to purchase the 2 new police vehicles out of the 2020 approved budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Paul.
Yep.
Yeah. Council, any questions? Okay. So is there a motion to approve the purchase of the 2 public safety vehicles as Chief Falls presented?
This is Shannon. So moved.
Okay. Motion has been made by Ms. Bruce. Is there a second?
This is John T. L. second.
All right. And Mr. Trumperlin seconded that. So any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor will signify with... Oh,
Lisa, one
Yep.
second. I just have a real quick question.
Yep.
If the
Go ahead.
detective is driving, if the detective is driving that car, is he going to get a different car, or how is that going to work?
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. So the plan is one of these vehicles will go as a marked patrol car to patrol. The other one will go to the lieutenant. And then the vehicle the lieutenant is currently driving will be handed down to the detective.
Okay.
And I'm assuming, Chief, I'm assuming that's unmarked as well.
Yes, it is. That's correct.
Yeah, okay. All right. All right. Just for clarification there. All right. All right. But good question. All right. Any other questions?
Yes,
Otherwise,
this is Councilmember Molitor.
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe, and this is probably a question more appropriately answered by Brian Graham, I believe our policy for CIP on public safety vehicles recommends a replacement range between 50,000 miles and 100,000 miles. Is that correct, Brian?
That is correct. Yes. This is Paul,
Okay.
but it is correct.
Yep, that's correct.
I think I've seen that quite a bit. I'm not opposed to this purchase, but I think we need to revisit that standard a little bit. 50,000 miles probably is appropriate back in the 70s and 80s when cars fell apart in a much earlier stage. I think we might want to revisit that policy and up that range a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to, because if we continue to follow that, that's just a little bit too generous in my opinion. So not necessarily applicable in this case here, but I would like perhaps to revisit that at some point and get those ranges to be more indicative of the lifespan that we see on today's vehicles.
Yeah,
yes.
we can certainly do that. I think there's a slight difference between the police vehicles and like your regular vehicle that you drive to work.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm not suggesting 200,000 miles or anything, but I think 50,000 miles is pretty. I mean, if you can't get 50,000 miles out of even a police car, something's wrong. So.
Yeah.
Well, Madam Mayor and Council, just real quick, I can assure you that we typically do not replace any police vehicles at 50,000 miles. So I'm not sure where that number came from, but we typically try to get them close to 100,000 miles. And after that, they tend to start falling apart. But we can certainly look at that number and make an adjustment there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'd like to have the policy. I'm not suggesting you don't currently do that. I'm just like to see the policy be a little more reflective of reality.
Yep.
And I'm going to jump in here, Mayor and Council. The one thing that you should keep in mind, so what you're seeing on these reports is miles, but those cars don't just drive miles. I mean, when a squad makes a stop or is on a call, they don't turn the ignition off. They let the car sit and idle. So that engine's running. There's no miles being put on it, but those engines idle a lot more than your typical family vehicle. So it's not just the fact that it's 50,000 miles. I think that's quite low myself, but those engines are on all the time. I mean, especially if they're used. I think, what do we have, Paul? We have just single people, single patrol, what, about 4 hours a day?
Yes, that sounds about right. And to your point, these cars do idle a tremendous amount. If you're on a crash, sometimes you're on a crash for 8 hours. If it's a bad crash, with everything that goes on there, the car runs the entire time.
Right.
Or you're on a domestic for 3 hours, and so on and so forth. So these cars do take a lot of abuse. They're built for it, but they do take a lot of abuse.
Right.
Yeah. I think good points made, though. We can certainly take a look at that.
Oh, definitely.
And I know, Chief Falls and his crew over there, they would never prematurely replace their vehicles. We just want to make sure that they don't break down in case they have to go to a call. So, but good point, Mr. Molitor. All right. So, any other questions or comments? So, a motion has been made and seconded. So I'll call the vote. All those in favor will signify with aye. I'm Lisa Whalen. I'm the mayor. I vote aye. So, Ms. Mortensen.
Aye.
And Ms. Bruce.
Aye.
Mr. Chumperland,
Aye.
and Mr. Molitor.
Aye.
And that's 5-0, so motion passes. So next we'll move on to a professional service agreement for the replacement of lift station number 3. Is that Ms. Falsky or Mr. Peters?
That's
Gary or
Mr. Gad.
yeah. Gadbois? Okay. All right.
Third option.
Third option. Okay. Hey, I got your name right though.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank
right.
you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'll take this item, and what you have in front of you in your packet this evening is a proposal for professional services to perform the design of the replacement of lift station number 3 and the associated force main. There's a map included in the agenda item. This lift station is located off of Minneapolis Avenue. And actually, when I say off of it, it's right on the edge there, right next to Minneapolis Avenue. And now that Minneapolis Avenue is included in the 2021 street improvement project, as we starting to look at preliminary design and getting a good idea of the condition of public utilities within these roadways, and taking a closer look at them and as-built on to when they were constructed and also the condition of them. It is recommended by engineering and public works staff that this lift station gets replaced before the street gets replaced for a couple of reasons. It's an older designed lift station. It's not of the same design that would go in today. And because of the design that it is, it's excessively deep. That's part of the reason it's excessively deep. And so if the city were to go and replace this lift station in a couple of years, even though it's not imminently failing right now, that excavation to perform that replacement would impact the newly reconstructed Minneapolis Avenue. So in an effort to avoid rework, it is a timely opportunity to get this replaced in conjunction with or right before the Minneapolis Avenue is reconstructed and put back together with new pavement. This lift station actually serves quite a big area, and that's why we included the map in the agenda item today. You've got not only Minneapolis Avenue, but Grandview Avenue, and then all of Red Oak comes this way as well. So it's going to be a significant bypass situation during the construction of it, but we do believe that incorporating it with the 2021 project in a way where we would include it in the bid package would allow for good coordination between whichever contractor is the low bidder on the 2021 project, should it go forward, would then work with this likely a subcontractor to construct this lift station and force main. If we bid it as a separate project, which can be done, from our history of dealing with different contractors, there can be conflict on scheduling, on when the road contractor is in there to reconstruct Minneapolis Avenue, and when the sanitary sewer contractor is in there working on the lift station. So what we're proposing would be to complete the design separately, but then include the plans and specifications in the bid package for the 2021 project, bid it out together so that we can have efficient coordination for that work if it were to take place in 2021. Let's see.
Adam,
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. No, well, I had a question, but if you're not done, I can wait.
I was just going to touch on the budget. So if you wanted to sneak in a question before getting to that.
Yeah. Okay. So my question here is, okay, if you put it in with the bid package for the road itself, I'm wondering, will we would not have any say as to who the subcontractor is to do that work? And I'm just concerned, what if they got, so the company comes in with the low bid for the road and they've contracted or subcontracted this out to a subcontractor that we know nothing about, that maybe isn't very good. How does that work? I'm a little concerned about that.
That's a great question, Madam Mayor. And so you're saying, as opposed to quoting this out separately, where we would choose a couple different contractors to provide the quote package to, as opposed to opening it up to anyone to bid on? As
No,
that being an alternative, is that the question?
no. So what I'm wondering is, you were saying that it would be part of the road construction bid project, and then so there would be a potentially a contractor for the road project that would also hold the contract for the reconstruction of the lift station. So my question, I mean, it seems to me, I could be wrong, but it seems to me there's two different projects going on, and not necessarily one knows how to do the other one.
Okay.
So so what I'm wondering is, would you get better results? And I understand the concept about coordination and stuff, but would you get better results and have more flexibility if you put the bid out for the lift station separate from the road station, from the road reconstruction? Is that not good?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying the question. In my opinion, and if Gary or Allison would like to speak up as well, we're going to see the same people bidding on it, whether or not it's a part of the overall contract or a separate project. And this kind of plays into the budget. We would have to competitively bid this project anyways, so it would still be open for anyone to bid on. But I think we would see the same contractors, if you will, whether or not this was part of this road project or its standalone project. We would still kind of perk up the ears of the same sewer and pipe work contractors that would bid on it either way. And that's just my opinion. If Gary or Allison would like to chime in as well with their opinions, that'd be great.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think Adam's done a really good job explaining the types of contractors that we would expect to see on this project. And, this year's street improvement project also included a force main replacement, which, that can be, some of these contractors don't have utility crews and subcontract utility work. So it could be akin to something to that extent, where you're simply looking at your general contractor to coordinate all construction activity for the project, versus, as Adam stated, trying to have either the city or have WSB to try to coordinate that work. We put that onto the contractor, and they find somebody else to work with, and they would still be obligated under the contract requirements that the city sets forth in the project documents.
Yeah, that's a great point. Regarding,
Okay.
we do already have some force main work to bid with the 2021 project. I forgot to mention that. So there's already some similar type of work being planned for the project. So actually, that'll make it more appealing for some of these pipe contractors.
Okay. All right. All right. Go ahead.
As I was saying, the budget, the 2021 budget provides $250,000 for the replacement of this lift station and the force main. The proposed fees are provided there for preliminary design, bringing it through to final design, bidding the project, and then actually the cost for construction observation. It is a kind of a specialty inspection. It wouldn't be our standard road observer or inspector out there. That cost is also included there in the proposal. And so I would take any questions on this, why this is needed, or any questions about the lift station replacement at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gadbois. Council, any questions?
This is Councilmember Bruce. I have a question. I was looking in the memo, and it doesn't say how old lift station number 3 is. Can you tell us how old it is, and the force main, and when they were built, and what the average life cycle of a lift station is? How long do they usually last?
Certainly. Thank you, Councilmember Bruce. The lift station is, I believe, approximately 47 years old. So that's pretty old for a lift station. It's a wet well, dry well setup, and I don't spend a lot of time maintaining these. I know Gary's crews do, and he could maybe chime in on the fact that this is actually a more difficult type of lift station to maintain, difficult to access and get into, as opposed to the proposed type of lift station. So it's an old shape, or it's an older condition, and then it's not very practical for maintenance for the city's public works staff. And then the force main, though I don't think there's a extensive break history on it, it is a short stretch of cast iron pipe, and we wouldn't put any cast iron pipe in the ground nowadays, and we like to get it out from underneath the roadway or near the roadway if possible, just due to its susceptibility to corrosion. And so we would be putting what was put on this year's 2020 project for that force main replacement, which would be a plastic pipe. So it's kind of aging infrastructure, and although it's not failing, because we're coming in with the roadway now that Minneapolis Avenue was added, it's just a really opportune time to perform this replacement work.
Yep, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, we certainly wouldn't want to not do it and then tear up the road 3 years later. Probably this was the original one that was put in. I know the entire lake area was sewered in the late 60s, early 70s, so I'm assuming it might even be the original. Yes.
Madam Mayor, this is Gary. Yeah, it's been modified, I don't know how many years ago. I mean, several years ago, they made some modifications to try to make it a little better, but yeah, it's definitely one of our older lift stations and definitely in need of some work there. And is like Adam said, it is one of our difficult ones to work with and work in, and we don't like going in them, and it's just nice to make it safer for everybody all the way around.
Yeah, good. Yep, good point too, Gary. All right, anybody else have questions?
This is Councilmember Molitor.
Mr. Molitor, go ahead.
Hey, Adam, on the diagram on page 141 of the packet, could you kind of describe where the force main line actually runs here? Obviously, I know that lift station 3 is probably the lowest point, I'm assuming, of all this line, but where does it pump it back out? Where's the force main?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Councilmember Molitor. So the lift station's called out on that sheet, and then the typical gravity sewer is that solid red line that connects all the manholes, which are the dots. The dashed white and red line is the force main, and I believe it runs 300 or 400 feet, and basically it just gets it up to a point where it can empty back out into the gravity line and continue on to the north and to the west.
Okay. And I will add, I think I probably see one of the public works trucks at least every other day going down to check in at lift station. So I know it's a high maintenance item for them. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing there, but the truck goes by a lot. So hopefully this will reduce maintenance.
All right. Okay, good. Anybody else?
I just had a real quick question going back to the bidding process. Do you see at WSB who the bids are coming in from, and do you have any say in who the final company is that works on that project?
Yeah, thank you for that question, council member. We will see who's bidding. Typically, we can see who's holding the plans. Everything's downloaded from the internet now, so we can see who's got a copy of the plans. And typically during the bidding period, which will be 2 to 3 weeks, typically 3 weeks, we'll be getting questions and calls from contractors to talk about the project and ask specific questions. And sometimes through that process, something comes up, we need to issue an addendum. So there's an active correspondence. So we do have a good idea of who's bidding. When the bids do come in, we, last year obviously did a public bid opening at City Council, in the City Council chambers. We'll likely have to do something similar this year, but maybe distanced. But we won't have any say in who, I guess, can bid on it. And besides the contract language that dictates, it has to be, they have to meet the state requirements for a licensed contractor and those sorts of things. We won't be able to say anything else in regards to who can bid on it. and then it would be low bidder that would receive the bid if they're a competent bidder, and obviously as the council deems necessary and how they award the contract.
Okay,
Right.
I just curious on that process. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Otherwise, is there a motion then to approve the professional service agreement for the replacement of lift station number 3? And that would be done, the work would be done same time that we do Minneapolis Avenue.
So moved. This is Pam.
All right. A motion has been made by Ms. Mortensen. Is there a second?
Councilmember Molitor, I'll
Okay.
second that.
All right. Mr. Molitor, second that. So all those in favor will signify with aye. Ms. Mortensen?
Aye.
Mr. Molitor?
Aye.
Ms. Bruce?
Aye.
Mr. Trumperlin?
Aye.
And I'm voting aye, Lisa Whalen. Motion passes 5-0. So now we'll move on to the next business item. It's scope and assessment discussion for the 21 Street Improvement Project. Ms. Fauski or Mr. Gebois? I'm not sure which one.
Madam Mayor, I'll take this one if I may.
All right.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, this evening, I appreciate some clarification. I apologize I didn't update the title of this item. We're not looking for any clarification on assessment methodology this evening, but there are two components of the potential design and scope of the feasibility report that we would appreciate council's feedback on whether or not to include for the local street improvement project in 2021. The first item pertains to the trails that extend from Minneapolis Avenue. If the council recalls at the virtual open house, there was a resident that, perhaps a couple, that brought up the condition of the trails that extend through to the north of Minneapolis Avenue and including those in the project. We're looking for council's direction at this time if council would like to look at getting some topographic information when the surveyors are out there and including that in the feasibility report to take a look at what the estimated costs would be. It certainly wouldn't require the council to move forward with that component of the project if the estimated costs came in higher. But we would certainly need some information if the council wanted to find out what the estimated cost would be to do that work. The reason I wanted to bring it up at the council meeting tonight here is we have the survey crews will be going out into the 2021 project areas to gather information. And if council wants to include this area in the feasibility report, they can just go ahead and get that extra information at this time. Pausing on that direction this evening, for a month or so, surveyors can still work through the winter. However, snow and ice removal causes the price for survey work to go up, of course. So I wanted to see what the council's thoughts were on the trails, if there's any opinion on that. And then similarly, we did have some really good discussion on curb and gutter in the project areas. As we've discussed previously, the hardscrabble area would certainly be a very challenging area to include curb and gutter in the design. But looking if the council would like the feasibility report to include estimated costs for concrete curb and gutter and lowering Stonebridge and Minneapolis Avenue. And I think we were hearing surmountable curb type, the type that can be driven over the entire length. But just looking if council has any direction for staff on these two items.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Felsky. So why don't we take this one at a time? First, the trails. So I just want to say the trails could be paid for out of our park funds. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe park dedication funds could be used for both the surveying and any costs related to the trail improvements. Is that correct? I'm not sure who would answer that. Mr. Grimm or Ms. Fausti, either one.
I believe any of the costs of a capital improvement should be able to be rolled into and paid out of the park dedication fund.
Okay. And then, yeah, I know that they would need different equipment. I don't know that it's really going to save us a lot of money, but it might make sense to do it now. But I know they use different equipment to do the trails versus the streets because the trails are significantly narrower. So it may not give us a lot of, benefit in terms of dollars, but it would make more sense to get it done now. That's just my opinion. Anybody have questions or want to weigh in on that one?
This is John T. Are we looking at, as the memo here says, resurfacing, or like we're doing the Minneapolis Avenue, kind of reclaim it and rebuild them?
That's an excellent question, and I think that's something we take a look at in the feasibility report. The other week I was out in the project area, and I didn't walk the entire trail. The eastern trail was a little longer, but just looking superficially at some of the distresses that are in the lower part of it, my estimation would be that it would be a reconstruction of the trail, so that you would have to bring in new class 5, but that would certainly be a component of the feasibility report in estimating the cost. Would be to take a look at the condition of that trail and providing a recommendation if it's just a pavement replacement, or if we should, if there's a recommendation to go into the subgrade as well.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Grimm, if this is the difference between resurfacing or rebuilding, does that make a difference as to what funds can be used?
The reconstruct for sure could be park dedication. Even the resurfacing might get a little more gray. I mean, you're still improving it, so we probably could use park dedication funds. I mean, I guess there'd be the argument whether it's more maintenance than improving. So that's, yeah.
Well, but Brian, maintenance is more like patching and seal coating, but what we're talking here is either reconstruct or resurfacing, which really would fall under CIP and not really maintenance anymore. That's my opinion, but what do I know?
I think it's just different level of improvements, but I think they both probably, I would think, would fall under a capital type item versus more patching or just, doing some minor maintenance to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have questions regarding the trail issue?
This is Councilmember Molitor.
Yep.
So I've walked these trails hundreds of times. They're both have separate but very different needs. The 30-foot long one that's on the cul-de-sac, that asphalt is pretty much almost gone. It's really that would have to be replaced. It's also there's a pole in the center of it to prevent cars from driving through. And it's about, as noted here, 30 feet long. It's also on a pretty steep slope. And as noted, this might be kind of difficult to get a paving machine in there. One thought I had, and I'm not real strong feeling on this either way, but perhaps that should be considered for concrete rather than asphalt. It might actually be easier and quicker to do in concrete. Then you don't have to worry about getting a machine in there because that's really tight quarters. So you just might want to think about that. The other trail, I believe, I know it was constructed much later. And so that's kind of a different challenge there. But I think we've got one or two areas that have settled and creates kind of a trip hazard. So it's kind of a different story there. But just wanted to point out that we might want to, on at least that 30-foot section, the other section I think might be a little bit easier to get a piece of machinery in because there's not as much obstacles in the beginning or end of the entrance, but just something to think about.
Yep, good point. Yeah, I mean, obviously they could remove the post and then put it back in, but maybe
Well,
your
they'd have to do
point
that
is
to pave it for sure, but yeah,
right.
it might
Yeah.
just from a maintenance perspective going forward, and it might tie into the next item, which is the curb discussion. If we would opt to do a concrete curb along Minneapolis Avenue, doing that 30-foot section in concrete might be a pretty economical add-in and match up with how the rest of it looks.
Yep. Yep. Good point. Okay. So the question here is basically,
Excuse me, I had a
do
question.
we want to? Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I know we're just talking about the feasibility report, and I'm just wondering ballpark, how much cost is it going to be to include the survey work so that we can put these both in the feasibility reports? Do you have a ballpark number?
Madam Mayor, I would estimate that it would probably take the crew perhaps an additional hour or two to gather this work, which would be probably about neighborhood of $300.
Okay, I think that's fine. I just wanted to get the ballpark, but that sounds fine to me.
And that's for the not for the feasibility report, but for the surveying.
Correct.
All right. All right. And then any idea, did you have a feasibility number in here just for the trails? I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, I don't have any estimate. Are you looking for, high level cost for this?
Yeah.
Or,
yeah. No, just
Madam Mayor,
if you add this into the scope, what would the additional engineering and or costs be for that? Not necessarily to do the work, but just engineering costs.
Sure. You mean as far as getting an opinion of cost and such in there?
Yeah, and then, right.
Yeah, for the preliminary design. I would estimate we would probably be around another perhaps $600 to $1,000, depending on how much additional work you'd have to go in, reconstructing through there if there's, if we wanted to look at two different.
Okay.
Yeah, so somewhere in that neighborhood. So you're looking at all in about between, I think I'm at $800 to $1,500 or something to that extent between the topographic information and the engineering work.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, so are we on board then with the trail? Do you, so we'll move on to the curbing in just a second, but am I hearing any opposition to adding in the trails at this point? None. All right. We'll move on to curb and gutter then. We did discuss this briefly at our work session, and we also talked about possibly using our stormwater fund for the city's portion of the concrete curb and gutter. Who wants to take this? Ms. Bowski? Mr. Gabois?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. I think we had some discussion on a high level about, and similar to other projects, utilizing concrete curb and gutter to facilitate drainage off some of these street improvement projects. And we'd certainly be able to continue with that methodology if there's curb and gutter included in the entire project area. We can have those costs separated. But we're looking to see if council would like to see an estimated project cost for curb and gutter through each corridor. And the reason being is when we start looking at preliminary design work for these areas, whether or not you add in curb and gutter really does make a difference in the design, because you're changing the elevation on how you match in the edge of that roadway, whether it's if you do not have curb and gutter, you just match it in with the blacktop. But if you have curb and gutter, you have to lower that blacktop elevation so that you can get the curb to move up and match into the driveways and the front yards. And so there is some design component with that. It doesn't change the design fee, the engineering fee. because we did anticipate that there would be some concrete curb and gutter. It's when we have to change from one design to another is where we start doing some redesign work. So we wanted to touch base with the council early on to see if that's something that you would like us to look at with the feasibility report.
Okay, thank you. So would we be able to get like a high level, if you will, estimate as to what the cost would be for Loring's and then for Stonebridge and then also Minneapolis Avenue? We'd have to have them separated so we kind of have a feel for what the costs are going to be. Is that part of what the feasibility would do?
Yes. So we could certainly look at past projects and see what the cost of curb and gutter is, and I don't have that number off the top of my head. And so we can look at, similar to what we look at for budget reasons when we're looking at street improvement costs. I can give you a high level cost on what we'd be looking at for curb and gutter, but it would certainly be in the feasibility stage where we would really get into the design and get a much more accurate estimate for that type of improvement.
All right. Council, questions?
This is Shannon. I agree. I think we need some high level costs here before I'm comfortable asking for it to be included in the feasibility report, because we have a certain budget that we're trying to stay within for our road budget, and we only have so many dollars in our stormwater fund as well. So I would need some high level numbers to make a decision on this.
Okay, council, rest of the council?
This is John T. Question on hardscrabble. If familiar with the area, if we're not dealing with concrete curb, were we talking at all about putting any type of a curve there to control the water flow?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Trump. Yes, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Trumperlin, we could certainly, I think we would anticipate some spots where there would be some curb and gutter to facilitate drainage, but just those streets are so very narrow, which is why we were looking at the feasibility of getting curb and gutter throughout that entire neighborhood. Just seemed like a big challenge for that area, but I think there would be some opportunities if curb and gutter would help facilitate some drainage in that area. We could certainly look at that.
Yeah, this is Adam Gabwa. I could speak to that a little bit. The hardscrabble area, for the most part, especially hardscrabble circle, actually has ditches on either side. There will be areas where we would have to add some curb, more so to retain some of the steep slopes that come down onto the roadway. And like Ms. Fauske said, direct some of the drainage to those existing ditches. So hardscrabble is more of a rural road section, and it's not practical to add curb everywhere because you'd have to do a lot of grading, especially in that Nature Conservancy area in the center of hardscrabble circle. Hardscrabble Road, however, is a lot steeper, and there's a drainage issue at the low point. We will be looking at certainly some concrete curb and gutter there in those high velocity, high surface water drainage velocity areas on Hardscrabble Road North.
Okay, thanks. So for the issue at hand here, we're basically, it's only Loring, Stonebridge, and Minneapolis.
Right, correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Pam and Mr. Molitor, Mike, guys want to weigh in?
Sure. I've received a lot of feedback from Minneapolis residents about wanting concrete curb and gutter. It's actually right up there with doing the road itself. Just from a drainage perspective, it would alleviate a lot of people's water problems they're having. In terms of the other ones, I'd be open to it. I mean, obviously we've talked about cost. People understand that that's going to be part of the cost as well. I also add that I know there's some culvert sections that are on the north side of Minneapolis Avenue that would probably be taken out or not needed to be replaced if concrete curb was put in, because they run parallel to the road for probably about 300 feet. And were kind of put in kind of as a substitute almost for curb and gutter. So I think there might be some cost saves there. If we were thinking about replacing those culverts, we wouldn't have to. They could simply not be needed anymore. So I definitely think we need to give that some consideration.
So what if we did, and Pam, did you want to weigh in?
No, I just think everything that I've heard, I agree with. Getting a feasibility report would be important at this time.
So, but kind of back to my question, and I think Shannon had the same one, is, what are we talking? I mean, is there some, let me ask you this, Ms. Falsky, is there some way of getting a high level estimate in terms of what the city's, what it would cost for curb and gutter on these 3 roads? And if we got that next time, is that going to hold up the project? Where, timing-wise, how are we sitting?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's a very considerate question to ask. The curb and gutter discussion can certainly hold off until next meeting, and I can come back to the council with a high-level estimate for each of those project areas on what it would be to add curb and gutter, so that it can help. It can assist the council in providing some direction.
Okay, and I don't have a problem adding it. I mean, particularly Minneapolis Avenue, because I think Mr. Molitor is correct, but I still think it would behoove us to kind of know what we're getting into in terms of cost. So if I could make a recommendation, if we can make a decision on the trails tonight, that's, I think, more timely or needs time attention right now. And then if we can bring back the high level cost for curb and gutter, and if you could break it out into Minneapolis Avenue, Loring Avenue, and Stonebridge, I think it would be helpful not only for the council, but it would also be helpful for the residents too, because obviously they're going to be picking up half of the cost if we go forward with it. So is that direction enough? Do you need a motion on the trail?
No, Madam Mayor. That's fine. The council direction is sufficient for the trail work, and then, as you indicated, I can come back with the estimated cost for each of those 3 project areas, and that won't delay our progress on this.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. So with that, we'll move on to our next item, and that is, let's see, street improvement project, approve assessing contract with, okay, I think this is where we're at.
Correct.
So it's a resolution approving our assessing contract for the 21 to 24 assessment with Hennepin County. Mr. Baroni.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Grimm, who's the one that prepared this item for the packet. So, Mr. Grimm.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So what you have in the packet is a proposed agreement between the city of Minnetrista and Hennepin County for the county to provide the assessing services for the assessment years 2021, 22, 23, and 24. Mr. Jim Atchison is on this call. If there's anything he can help clarify he's with the county assessor's office. What's included in the packet is the resolution on page 152, and then pages 153 through 162 is the clean agreement, and pages 163 through 171 was basically the red line agreement from our current contract from 2017, 18, 19, and 20. As I've noted in the memo, basically the city has in the current most recent 4-year agreement, the assessing services was $130,000 in 2017, $138,000 in 2018, $144,000 in 2019, and for the most recent year, $153,000 you'll see in the pack, or you saw in the packet in the contract for 2021, the attached estimate for the next year would be 158,000, and the amounts subsequently for 2022, 23, 24 would be basically as in the current contract, adjusted based on, you know, a lot of with growth within the city, as well as the county assessing department's budget. So I don't know if anyone has any questions from council, or if you'd like to hear from Mr. Atchison first. I guess I'll leave that up to the mayor.
Okay, we'll first ask if council has any questions.
Do we have an option? I mean, this is, we don't have any option on this, right? It is what it is?
Most cities in Hennepin County do contract. I think it's 32 out of the cities within Hennepin County contract with the county for this service. Another 6 or 7, and Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, I think have their own internal. They're big enough to have their own assessing department. And then there's probably a handful, 5 or 6 that go out and have a small internal assessor for some of the, I think a few of them, the smaller cities contract with an independent assessor.
Okay, I was just curious.
So this is Mayor Whalen. I just have a question. I think they've done an excellent job, and I know Kevin Wynn, who is the assessor for Minnetrista, has been around for a while, so he really knows our city, and obviously there's some value to that. But I was wondering, I didn't see it. Is there an out clause? I mean, if the city were to decide, let's say next year we wanted to make some changes, is there any way we can opt out? Because I know with a lot of our contracts that we have that are 3 or 4 or 5 years, we always seem to have an out clause, and I didn't see it here. Brian?
Madam Mayor and Council, there is an out clause. I think even on page 167, I just pulled up, but it basically, with 120 days of written notice, either party could terminate the agreement. So I think that does give, the city protection if there's just whatever in year 2 or 3 or 4 things just have gone differently or something, and we'd want out, and essentially, I guess the county would have that same provision that if they wanted to, whatever. Again, there's a 120-day notice, but there would be a way to get out of the subsequent years of the contract.
Okay, and there's no performance. How do you say we can get out for any reason? And I'm not
Correct.
saying we want to. I'm just asking. I just think it's always good. Yeah.
Yep, that's how it's worded. For any reason upon providing 120 days prior written notice to the other party. Yep.
All right. All right. Thank you, Brian. All right. Any other questions or comments from the council? All right. Is there then a motion to approve the assessing contract with Hennepin County for 2021 through 2024?
So moved. This is Pam.
All right. A motion has been made by Ms. Mortensen. Is there a second?
I'll second this, Shannon.
Okay. Ms. Bruce made that second. So all those in favor will signify with aye. Mr. Chumperland, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Ms. Bruce?
Aye.
Ms. Mortensen?
Aye.
Mr. Molitor?
Aye.
And I'm Lisa Whalen. I vote aye. Motion passes 5-0. So we move on to approve our amendment to the residential recycling grant contract to extend the agreement for 1 year to 2021. Mr. Baroni, I believe that's you.
Nope, it is not me, Mayor. I apologize. I thought it was. This is again Mr. Grimm.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. And I think we even had some discussions when we were doing the recycling contract process this summer, as far as the recycling grant questions, and came up when we were discussing it then. So basically what you have in front of you with this packet item, the gist of it is that it extends the current grant agreement for 1 year, basically through that amendment, to keep the terms of the grant agreement the same for 2021. Basically, the funding would be the 50% for curbside recycling and 50% for organics. So that same funding policy or funding component would be in place for 2021. And then from 2022 and beyond, I think is going to be, as I referenced in the memo, there's going to be discussions with the with the county, with the city, with our contractor Waste Management, as far as drop sites and all that kind of stuff will be for a future year. But for 2021, basically this is just extending things as is from 2020 to 2021 for the recycling grant.
Okay, thank you. So basically, we have another year to decide on organics, is what it boils down to.
Correct, yes, and it just says their funding on the grants, right? I referenced, we got basically in 2020 about a little 14,500 roughly. So we would probably receive about that in 2021, all things being equal. And you can see for organics, their most recent amount was about $350. So obviously we have more time to discuss where we're going to go with organics. But for 2021, this basically the funding agreement with the county would stay the same.
All right, thank you. All right, Council, any other questions? Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. Do I have a motion then to approve the amendment to the residential recycling grant contract to extend agreement for 1 year for 2021?
So moved, Shannon.
All right. Motion has been made by Ms. Bruce. Is there a second?
I'll second, John T.
Okay. Mr. Chamberlain made that second. All those in favor will signify with aye. Ms. Bruce?
Aye.
And Mr. Chamberlain?
Aye.
Mr. Molitor?
Aye.
And Ms. Mortensen?
Aye.
And I, Lisa Whalen, I vote aye. So motion passes 5-0. So our last business item is approve the allocation of CARES funding. Mr. Baroni, is that you? Did we lose Mr. Baroni? Uh-oh. Hello? Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you, Lisa.
We can hear you, Lisa.
Okay.
I'll
Yes,
give him a
Madam
call
Mayor.
here.
All right. Wait, maybe Mike is gone.
No one said we need the guy. Where is he?
I don't know. All right.
I'll give him
how
a call
about-
here.
Okay.
It
In the
says
meantime,
he's offline.
Oh, okay. Maybe he lost power or something.
We're both at the office here, and he said he just had to reboot his computer real quickly, so he should be back in a minute, he said.
All right.
Hopefully this doesn't end our meeting, so just a heads up if we all start
So
leaving.
here's what
He's
I'm
the
gonna
one
do.
running it.
No, don't leave. All right, here's what I'm going to do until he gets back up here. Ron, our attorney, I know you've been involved in this. Can you add details to this item?
Sure, Madam Mayor, Council, yes. I think Mike's staff report lays it out pretty well, but the summary is that 2 meetings ago on September 21st, we had a discussion with the council, one of many, and you laid out what you want to do with the funds that were available. And what we've proposed in the resolution that's attached here is what I would characterize as a waterfall approach, where the first expenditure of the money is what we've been calling the low-hanging fruit. It's the plexiglass and hand sanitizer, now supplemented by some other items up to an estimated, and I emphasize estimated, cost of about $35,000. After that, the money would then be spent as you directed us last time, for up to $20,000 for 2 grantees. And Mike has been in communication with them. And then after that, the rest of the money, which would be about $500,000, so obviously the bulk of the money would go for reimbursing the cost for public safety, which we've discussed on a number of occasions. And some of the backup material in the packet is some supplemental guidance that we received from the Treasury Department near the end of September, which I think addresses directly the questions that we've been talking about on a number of occasions, having to do with the presumption about public safety costs. So that's sort of a high-level summary of where I think we're at.
All right, thank you. Council, do you have any questions of Mr. Beatty? And I don't know if Mr. Baroni is back online with us or not. Are you there, Mike? No? All right. Oh, you are? All right,
Yes,
welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know. I must have had a loose plug or something because everything went dark. I apologize. I just rebooted.
Oh,
and
Mr.
rejoined,
Beatty,
so
yeah, Mr. Beatty did a fabulous job. So
I'm sure he did. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Council, any questions? I know we've kind of beat this thing to death and we've discussed it multiple times. I thought the information we had in our packet was extremely clear and clarified a lot of questions that we had regarding the police funding. Anybody have comments or questions? All right. Otherwise, I would. Yep.
do. This is Shannon, and obviously, I think everybody knows I'm going to be voting against this, but I just want to say that the fact is that Minnetrista never did spend $500,000 on COVID-related activities, despite the permission we've received to essentially fabricate that we did. And I can't vote to support this, even if an authority is telling us it's okay, knowing we are not being truthful. I don't wish that this money is returned to the county. And if we had acted back in July, when we first learned of this funding, we could have, over the 5 months that we've been given, we could have spent these funds on a number of other legitimate things that could have helped our community, helped our community work remotely, helped our schools, given funds to businesses or individuals impacted. But instead, we decided to kick the can down the road until no other choices were feasible except this. And I'm extremely disappointed that we couldn't do better for our community and for those in it that were actually impacted by COVID and the resulting restrictions that followed from it. I don't support just spending this money on public safety when we did not incur $500,000 worth of COVID-related activities in public safety. I can't vote for that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to jump in here. First of all, I take offense when you say that we're not being honest. These funds, we have talked about how we can honestly and legally use them. So for you to imply or even outright say that this is dishonest is really, I take offense to that. And I'm sure the rest of the council and staff does as well. In addition, we cannot use these funds to help people operate remotely. And you heard that at our meeting with the other day. So, we can't spend this on internet connections or improving the internet for our residents because we already know that. And so now to say, well, we could have, no, we couldn't have. We never could have, not even back in July. And we also talked about
we could have given this money to the schools.
We also talked about, and I've got the floor. We also talked about helping businesses. However, that would have been a nightmare. And so with this, if we reimburse our police the $500,000, that does give us the ability to do other things with excess funds in our budget for our community. So for you to say we won't be helping our community is absolutely false. we will be helping our community in many other ways. So with that, I'm going to ask for other council members. Do you have any comments, or would you like to weigh in?
I have another comment that I'd like to make, and you can do things legally and dishonestly at the same time, and I'll just leave it at that.
Mr. Molitor, Mr. Trumperlin, or Ms. Mortensen? Anybody have a comment?
This is
I
John
think
P.
that, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Well, mine are just what I assume are typos, and I don't know if they're worth discussing, but being it's in a legal document, I thought I would bring them up. On page 228, in the third paragraph, the verbiage says, grantee further acknowledges a certifies that grant funds shall be. I'm assuming the word should have been grantee further acknowledges and certifies that grant funds should only be used to cover. And maybe that's nitpicking. I just happened to see it. And,
no, yeah.
And there's one other on page 235. Scan down. No, it can't be 230. It is 235. Can't be. That's the end.
Under program guidelines. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 235 under Exhibit A under eligible nonprofit details. It says to be eligible for economic assistance from the city, nonprofits must demonstrate impacted by. I am guessing the word how is missing. Must demonstrate how they, maybe it's two words, how they are impacted by.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Otherwise, back to my opinion on how the funds are being used, I see nothing wrong with this. We have beaten this to death with a shovel, and it is not dishonest, and it is completely, I'm glad that Treasury finally defined. Obviously, many cities have probably struggled with that. The same issues we deferred on. And now that they've made it absolutely clear to me that there isn't an issue with this usage, I am very pleased with the work that staff has done to itemize this out and to break the cost down. Period.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Ms. Mortensen, you were wanting to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I feel that our legal advisors and staff have done a really good job, and the amount of hours meeting and reviewing to get the information to us so that we know we are doing this legally. I think they've done a very good job with making all of that clear, and I trust their conclusion that this is legal and within the guidelines that has been stated.
Okay. Mr. Molitor, do you want to weigh in at all?
Thank you, but I have nothing further to add.
All right. Thank you. So with that, then, if there's no further comments or questions, then I'm looking for a resolution or a motion to approve the allocation of the CARES funding as presented in our packet. Is there a motion to that effect?
It's John T. So moved.
All right. And is there a second?
This is Pam. I'll second it.
All right. Thank you. So a motion has been made by Mr. Trumperlin and seconded by Ms. Mortensen to approve the allocation of CARES funding. All those in favor will signify with aye. We'll start with Ms. Bruce.
No.
No. And Mr. Trumperlin?
Aye.
Ms. Mortensen?
Aye.
Mr. Molitor?
Aye.
And I, Lisa Whalen, vote aye. Motion passes 4 ayes, 1 no. And we move on. So that concludes our business items. We move on to administrative items, staff reports. Mr. Baroni, if you're with us, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry about that again.
Oh, that's okay.
Like I said, all of a sudden my whole computer went dark, like I think there was a loose cord. So nonetheless, I have a few items to discuss tonight. And then you don't see Allison's name on there. Allison Fauske, she'll be giving you an update on one item, and then Gary will be giving you an update on the Lyle Park shelter. So my items, our next meeting is not until 3 weeks. We skipped the first Monday and moved to the second Monday due to the election. As was pointed out to me by a couple of council members today, they noticed in the info packet I put the minutes, or so-called minutes, from the new water tower construction meeting that occurred on October 13th, and it referenced a logo. And I just want the council to rest assured that it is not a logo. It's the exact same thing that we're doing on the water tower that's being rehabbed on Sunnyfield. It'll just be the name Minnetrista in the same lettering font style and the same color, etc. So nothing new there. And then I think that's all I have. And so with that, I will ask Allison Fauske to talk about the one item she's going to talk about.
Thank you, Mr. Baroni. Madam Mayor, members of the council, looking at the Sunnyfield Road project and the reclamation of that street, when we started taking a look at getting the preliminary design done once we get topographic information in, the designers started looking at the slopes that extend from the edge of the roadway, because as the council recalls, this is a state aid route, and therefore there's a maximum slope that's allowed for a certain distance off the edge of that roadway. The challenge that comes into play here is at the maintenance road to the school maintenance area. There's a wetland on either side of that access road. And while the roadway is not right up against that wetland, we do have some slopes that extend right up to the edge of that wetland there. And we're basically right at the cusp where we're not certain that until we get the topographic information in, we're not sure if those slopes meet that state aid design requirement. And secondly, because we are so close to a wetland area, it's good practice to go and get that wetland delineated. So that work was not included in the original scope of the feasibility report. And as council recalls, with today's snow, we are unfortunately heading into winter here, but I've been assured that we can get an accurate wetland delineation here this week. So I wanted to bring that to the council's attention, with my apologies for not bringing this to the council with the original proposal, but it is some work that needs to be done. We can get the delineation done in time, and then at the next council meeting, I would be bringing to the council a resolution just to authorize the wetland work that would be necessary to get that preliminary design done, to include the wetland delineation in that work as well.
So, Ms. Fauske, what are you asking the council tonight?
Madam Mayor, it was an informational item. My apologies for not clarifying that. Okay. I just wanted to bring council up to date with that the wetland work is not included in the original scope, and I'll be bringing that back to the council. But we're just, because we are up against a weather window, I've asked the wetland delineator to head out there this week, so that we're still able to keep the project on schedule.
Okay, and it probably won't be that expensive though, will it? I mean, what are we talking, a few $100s or?
A wetland delineation, because of it comes with a report as well. It's probably about $3,000 between the field work and the reporting component of it, which is similar to what we had for the local street improvement project over on the Hardscrabble area.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right. Council, any questions? All right. And Mr. Barone, you said that Mr. Peters had something to report on?
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. So I want to have Gary give a quick update on the Lyle Park shelter. I know it's been a while since we've checked back in on this, and as we all saw today, the winter is coming. So, we've been concerned about this, but have been trying to reach our vendor on this. And today, Gary, I think not only talked with Robert Goodman, who's our building official and will be kind of handling some of the oversight on the actual construction, but thought I'd give Gary a quick minute here to update you on what's going on with that project. Gary?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Madam Mayor, Council, yes, I did get a hold of our representative, Mike Bash at St. Croix Recreation. He is our sales rep there. They are looking at getting dirt work and footings dug out this week and getting the footings poured at the end of this week. Once they get the footings dug, of course, Robert will have to go out and inspect the footings. It is a building structure, so there is a building inspection involved. So he'll be going out to inspect the footings, proper depth and size as compared to the plans. They will pour those this week. Early next week, there would be slab work done. The 30 by 30 slab would be poured. And then the shelter is scheduled to arrive on November 6th is what the prediction date is. And they would be offloading that day. Hopefully starting the erection is what he said in one of the emails. And then if not, the following week, and we'll be getting it up. Robert will be doing the inspections as that goes as well. Whatever the building component or building inspection component there is to that shelter, he'll be checking on that. So confident that they can get the concrete poured. I mean, concrete's, formed and poured all winter long. So they'll have to use a little, what they call a hot load to get in to get it set. They'll have to have the blankets on it, and definitely I will make sure that they have it all insulated and covered. Once everything gets done and starts being erected, they can do that, just like house building, pretty much do that in the middle of, snowstorms or cold. So just not ideal weather, I'm sure, for them to work in, but they are on track, and hopefully we get this done. As far as the dirt work goes, we'll probably end up having to do that next spring, I would assume, unless we get a bout of warm weather.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Yeah. Little bit disheartening that they haven't gotten it done by now, but it is what it is, I guess. All right. Council, any questions? All right. Mr. Brony, does that conclude our staff reports?
It does, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. So we'll move on to council reports. I just have a couple. So Mike, David, and I, Mike Baroni, David Abel, and I attended a meeting with a group from Extra Time, who is a broadband company that serves particularly rural areas of Minnesota. And they are in Independence and Delano. And so we thought we'd invite them in just to talk with them, see what they can offer. There's nothing really that the city can do other than encourage our residents to call this company and check it out for themselves. We're not necessarily promoting them. We just wanted to find out what their approach would be and what their timing might be and how they operate. The other one I attended, and I believe Ms. Bruce attended this one as well. It was a virtual meeting. Danny Nadeau with Jeff Johnson's office coordinated a Western Hennepin County broadband discussion. Pretty much not a whole lot more. We didn't hear a whole lot more than what we probably already know. I know that Mediacom has applied for a grant. We don't know if they'll get it yet, but if they do get the grant, they would be extending fiber optics into the far northern part of Minnetrista, I believe, up there by County Road 92, down to maybe Oxyoke, but it wouldn't be a very long extension, but anything is better than nothing, but they are waiting for the to be approved for the grant. The other part that was discussed briefly, some of the people use their PEG fee or their access fees or their franchise fees, I should put it that way, to help expand broadband in their communities, and that might be something we might want to look at in the near future. Also, I was not able to attend the Northwest League meeting. I had a conflict there, but I will be attending their meeting in November 18th. So that's it for me. We'll move on to Ms. Mortensen. Anything?
No updates on WCC. They are still not meeting. And I did attend on the 14th of October a personal committee meeting.
All right, good. Thank you. And Mr. Molitor?
No updates here. Thank you.
All right. And Ms. Bruce?
Nothing here.
Okay. And Mr. Trumperlin?
Attended the October Pioneer Sarah Creek meeting last Thursday, the 15th. We had our final public hearing for the comments for the 4th Gen plan. No additional comments were received at that time. Previous comments had been discussed and updated, corrections made into the 4th Gen draft. Commission then approved submitting the draft to Bowser, also known as the Board of Water and Soil Resources. I get Bowser out of that. But anyway, then they have 90 days to respond back, but we'd already had discussions with them. They were very favorable, so looks like we're close to putting this summer-long 4th Gen plan to bed. Okay, good. I'm sure it'll be very well received if you can do that. So great job. Thank you. It's much more detailed than obviously the 3rd Gen, which was only a 6-year, and that was just, I think everybody was getting their feet wet with all the detail that needed to go into it, and this is a much better product.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So with that, that concludes all of our items on our agenda. If there's a motion to adjourn, we can then be adjourned. Is there a motion?
So moved. This is Pam.
All right. And who seconded that?
This is Mike.
All right. Mike seconded that. So Ms. Mortensen made that and Mr. Molitor seconded that. Mr. Molitor, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Ms. Mortensen?
Aye.
Ms. Bruce?
Aye.
I vote aye. Lisa Whalen and Mr. Trumperlin?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. So we are officially adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the 9th. We'll see you. We'll talk to you on the 9th. Good night.
Good night.